background, I was locked up and incarcerated at the age of 12 years old. I like to say that I was a victim of the school to prison pipeline. I was told I had ADHD at the age of 6 years old. They put me on all types of medications and pretty much told me I needed drugs in order to be normal. And then they secluded me from the regular classroom and put me in this resource room and made me feel like I didn't belong. Underneath these drugs, I acted out in ways I probably never would have if I wasn't ever exposed to these drugs. And ultimately, by the age of 10, I was addicted to hardcore street drugs. At this time, it was crank. And I started using street drugs because I felt that drugs was what I needed to be normal. I was locked up at the age of 12, and I didn't get out until I was 32. I would come out, I'll go back in. This hit home, like I was in New Folsom. I went to New Folsom from Salinas Valley after a brutal prison riot with the Norteños in 2011. In 2011, I was in Salinas Valley, and we went at it real tough with the Northerners, and we ended up transferring 80 of us to New Folsom, which is the level 4 maximum security. 30 days after I got there, I was in one of the most brutalest prison riots that ever erupted there. It went on for 10 minutes. They shot at us, it was 23 times, but they said 12 rounds. My homie got shot in the leg. My other homie got shot in the arm. My other homie had shrapnel stuck in his head, and it was gruesome. And ultimately, I almost got shot in the head twice in that riot. And after that, they offered us college courses. They never offered college courses, so I was like, well, I'm going to take college. And this was a turning point in my life. I started taking college right there in New Folsom through Lassen Community College. But we didn't get like professors, or we didn't have classrooms or any of that. It was actually, they would send it in the mail. And then we do all this little curriculum they gave us with the books, and we would do all our classes. Well, I had a poor schooling upbringing, so I didn't know my times tables. I used to write sentences like I was writing a rap song, so I would like put a little bar at the end, you know? So I didn't have periods, commas, none of that. But while I was in New Folsom, I taught myself all that. I sat down and I read these books, and I literally taught myself how to write. I taught myself how to do all this, and that was where I started my college courses. And ultimately, I got out of in 2015 and went to community college. But that's a little bit about my background. I'm gonna let the other fellas introduce themselves, because I know there's questions and stuff, and that's a little bit about myself, and we'll go on with the questions as well.
How's it going? My name is Clint Terrell. I'm also a formerly incarcerated graduate student, and like Ryan, I also paroled from New Folsom in 2008. And yeah, we're getting right into some content, but maybe we'll go around and introduce and get back to the question about like what is mass incarceration, and touch on a couple of things you said about the rate that the U.S. incarcerates people at a much higher rate, but also keep in mind that that it's not something, when you frame the language like that, it gives you the idea that this is something that's only happening here, right? This is a global problem. Like the incarceration rates have been. Well, the U.S. is incarcerating people at higher rates. The world in general has been incarcerating people at higher rates in general in the last several decades, right? And this is something that you can really see taking place in California. Started in California with the increase of prisons. We went from in 1975 to having 5 prisons in California to 1988 having like 31 prisons, right? And then you see other states following suit. You know what I mean? Shortly after that, and then you see other countries and throughout Latin America and Europe and everywhere. This is a global thing. And then I also want to touch on some of the strategies, which we don't really get a lot in this film. I really like this film, but something that doesn't touch on is some of the strategies of resistance that prisoners have developed, which also took place in New Folsom, which I know you were a part of, Brian, and which I was on the streets by the time a lot of that was happening, and also in the same way how what's going on at at the carceral level, at the political level, at the level of law enforcement and judicial system, how other countries have been following that lead, how also other prisoners in other countries have been following leads of resistance that's been manifested right here as well. So pass the mic for now.
Buenas noches. My name is Joe Anthony Murillo. You know, they better put me up at the last minute as a panelist, so I really don't got too much thing to say. But anyways, I'm a former incarcerated student. I got on gang file, so I got on gang file before I got incarcerated, and within this gang file, like the gang database, it was already like this policy where it's passed in California, where if you kick in that same block or that certain environment or that certain community, the law enforcement would automatically like put you underneath on the gang file. But the reason for me, like, they put me automatically was because I already had families, already been like generations of gang members. So they already recognized me in the sense like, you know what, he's so and so's little brother, which my brother he got incarcerated, got to Pelican Bay SHU, where they already create this archive profile whose family is related to, and where they automatically already put them on gang file. I never went to prison, but I did a prison term in the county jail, and that was during the time when the 8109 realignment hit. So I ended up doing a whole year. I did like 2 years and a half in the county jail. Other than that, though, this is pretty great, dope work that we're doing now. For the things that I'm doing, as in the sense of, I got a fellowship, the Next Generation Fellowship, that we focus on like creating policies to challenge the state policy. Where how can we like provide more allocation of resources for people that have been incarcerated and are out now.
So the first question was basically how you personally were affected by the process of mass incarceration, which I know some of you were touching on, so if you guys would like to elaborate on that.
So for myself, I was groomed for prison. They wanted me in prison, like that was it. So by the age of 12, that's where I found myself. It started in juvenile hall. From juvenile hall, they put me on work ranches, and I became institutionalized. And when I got out, I just felt like I didn't belong out here. So I would just feel inadequate, and I would go back to getting high on drugs and partying with the homies, and ultimately it would just lead me right back in. Mass incarceration destroyed my life. It sucked the whole entire life out of me. It took all my dreams away from me, and it made me feel like that's all I was worth, was being incarcerated. It didn't change for me until 2011 when I started to study. The first two classes I took in New Folsom State Prison was I took Pharmacology of Drugs of Abuse, and I took College Success. These two classes opened up my eyes not only to being an amazing student in school, which that's what College Success gave me, it also taught me how to be an amazing student in life. And then I took Pharmacology of Drugs of Abuse, and I started to study all these drugs I was using. And I remember doing 11 research papers on every drug that I ever used. And after that, I never wanted to use drugs ever again. I was completely done with drugs. And I actually kept that book, and I used to go around and show the homies the pictures in the book, because the pictures were like, and I'd be like, dang, homie, you're gonna start looking like that, my boy. Like, you need to get back, homie. Like, you know, quit using the air, quit using all that junk, my boy. Like, you're gonna start looking like him, you know. And so I started to use it as a tool in the knowledge I was gaining. But this knowledge opened up a lot for me. It opened up about society and everything that society was doing. Mass incarceration also destroyed my kids and my relationship with my children and my family. Still to this day, my mother has my children. So I don't even have my own kids yet, you know. And I had to raise my children off of a prison phone. I raised my children off a 15-minute prison phone call every weekend. I called them, and this prison phone call costed my mom like $10 every single time I called. And I would get to talk to my kids, and it would be interrupted. So it's like a 15-minute phone call, and then for like, I probably got 5 minutes of the phone call, because it would be interrupted and it would say, "You are being recorded. You are talking to an individual in the Department of Corrections. This call is being monitored and recorded." And that's what I had to go through. And that's what my children were exposed to. So it was like almost introducing my kids to this prison system that they hope one day they can get them to. And so I found a way out through higher education. And I started to study, And ultimately, when I got out, I found that I could go to community college. When you come from the hood or you come from an underserved community, the first stigma that's in your mind is, I can't go to college, that's for rich kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's for rich people. We feel like we won't ever belong here. We could never get here because we could never pay for it. And when I got out, I learned differently. I learned, hey, you can go to college. And then I learned that they gave me a check in the mail, and it was like $3,200. And I was like, hey, I don't want this money. Like, I'm not gonna pay this money back to you. You know what I'm saying? Like, here goes this check. And they were like, no, that's financial aid. We want to take care of you while you go to school. And I was like, dang, that's a win right there. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're gonna pay me to go to school. Like, you know, we need to start this shit. You know, like, where did this come from, right? So I was like, whoa, like, they really want to help advance me and help me grow, right? But then as I get in here, I see these different capitalistic schemes now, and I start seeing all these different things that are actually truly taking place around us, and I see mass incarceration for what it truly is. It's truly just a capitalistic scheme, and I actually did research papers on it. And so new Folsom State Prison, that's the maximum security prison that they didn't show you guys in this film. It costs $286 million a year to run that one prison. So we give $15.7 billion of our tax money to the Department of Corrections in the state of California every year. It just went up $10 billion last year. Governor Brown wrote it in. So $286 million to run this one prison. So I started to research it and understand it a little bit more thoroughly. And so 80% of that money goes to the health department of that facility. I was like, how's that? Like, 80% of this money is going to the health department. You would think it would be going to the workers, but no. They spend millions of dollars every year at that one prison on units of medication. So they buy millions of dollars worth of medication every single year that actually never goes to that prison. They never even see that. So I started to study it and research it, and I found out in my research that it was driving the stock prices of these medications. And so every year it's kind of like inside trading. So they have backdoor things going on in our prison system, and that's how they wash our tax dollars out. They wash it out through the stock market. And there's so much other things, but it's a scam and it's a sham, and we're all being walked into it. And they have our schools set up and designed to filtrate those who they want to go there, which is mostly us underserved from the underserved communities, people of color, and they're guiding us through testing and other little ways to get us into the system of mass incarceration. It's disgusting.
All right, I second that. So yeah, like I guess like say how I was impacted or whatever, you know what I mean? I thought about this, you know what I mean? I've come to different resolutions, you know what I mean, with time, and I really think about it now, like my path to prison or incarceration. I really see, I turned to crime as a form of rebellion, you know what I mean? I was born into like some serious like poverty conditions, you know what I'm saying? Like poor, you know what I'm saying? Dad was out of the picture, left me and my mom, you know what I mean? We lived in a rural area up in the Sierra Nevada foothills, kind of where we grew up. A lot of vineyards, a lot of wine country out there, you know what I'm saying? I started working in vineyards, you know what I mean, just working in fields when I was like, 10, 11 years old, you know what I'm saying? And so like it became really apparent really early in my life that, you know what I'm saying, like this is what I'm gonna be. I'm gonna be a laborer, I'm gonna work hard, I'm gonna be a hard worker, you know what I'm saying? And like that's pretty much it, you know what I'm saying? Like I didn't want that for myself, I wanted something else. So I started, kind of getting creative of, you know what I mean, other ways, you know what I'm saying, that this is what I want. I want something more, you know what I mean? And like my solution for that was to, start stealing, selling drugs, you know what I mean? Coming up, getting creative about my economic situation, which really, led me to incarceration and a lot of other stuff in between, and so like I really see like, you know what I mean, with turning to crime is kind of my first stage of rebellion to like socioeconomic conditions, you know what I mean? Not really knowing how else to rebel, you know what I'm saying? Not really knowing, not understanding myself as like part of a broader problem or part of a broader broader community. You know what I mean? Really seeing my problem as individual and my fault, and like, so I need to get myself out of this. You know what I mean? And you know, turning to, you know, illegal activities and trying to make money illegally was the only individual solution I could see to get myself out of the individual problem. You know, and yeah, so with that, you know, I guess, you know, if I can go into, you know, talk about, you know what I mean, the solution is not being an individual one either to the larger mass incarceration problem. You know, some things that this video product, we talk about like the longer sentences and stuff like that, the 3 strikes law. And so like right now we're kind of in a state of reform, an era of reform, I would say, especially in California. You see a new article coming out every day with laws getting passed, and you know what I mean, sentences getting commuted, people getting out, education, college programs going on in prison, and all this is great. Like, it's changing people's lives. Like, people who are, you know, doing life without parole are getting their sentence commuted. So a lot of these reforms are systematically impacting various individuals. You know what I'm saying? It's helping individuals that have already been impacted by this. You know what I mean? And perhaps some of them, you know what I mean, have the tools now to get out and make something of themselves, but it's not really doing anything to heal like the larger problems, the larger social problems, the larger economic problems, right? So we're you know, maybe possibly creating change in individual lives who are already incarcerated, but it's not doing anything. It's not doing anything to break the cycle. You know what I'm saying? It's not healing the economic conditions that are leading people to these places in the first place. So the prison system is alive and well, right? And I just want you to be cautious. You know, with this whole there's a lot of, you know, very common trope, or not necessarily a trope, you know, but a common, you know, figure of speech going on around. You know, you hear like education, not incarceration, school, not prison. And yeah, that's great, you know what I'm saying, but we can't put too much on the university though either. You know, we can't let the university become the new church. You know what I mean? We can't let education become the new religion. You know, there's a lot of, you used to get preachers and, you know, religious folks going into prison trying to save everybody. You know, we can't let that happen, that same thing happen. You know, like, education can be enlightenment, and the university can be a site of enlightenment. You know what I'm saying? Like it was for me, like education and, you know what I mean, and just, you know, being positioned within the university, you know, has been enlightening for me, but I see it as that being in spite of the university and in spite of formal education, not because of it. And
shit. Man, I'm trying to do this though. So mass incarceration, it started off when like my brother started becoming a gamer, my sister, my other older siblings. So the first thing when growing up, when I seen was like, we're just cops coming in, like, you know what I mean? My whole house is all militarized with cops. Like, they came in, like, you know, shooting up my dog with some, like, powder, like itching powder. So we had a pet bull. So they automatically, like, shoot them up with the itching powder. Then they come in, breaking in the crib, and they're asking me, like, hey, you know, this and this and this, so and so. And they try, you know, they trying to look for all the drugs and all the guns. But like I said, too, so, like, later on, they build up, like, archives already, you know what I mean? So they recognize me already on the block. And a lot on the law enforcement. So throughout the whole time, from the time being, I ended up getting on gang file when I got into like middle school. So when I got into middle school, I got on gang file. Then like by the time I got into 8th grade, that's when I started getting into juvenile hall. I was in and out of juvenile hall. I didn't realize that I was going like, you know, I didn't realize it was gonna be like my career. Well, I did realize